Okay, so for this question, the correct answer would be A. The experimenters wanted to see if attractive subjects who know they're attractive would be more willing to trust. The results in figure 1 show the panel ratings and subjects' willingness to trust. As we can see, about 66% of the subjects who were considered to be attractive by the panelists were willing to trust, and the remaining third were not. So if 40% of the 66% actually found themselves to be unattractive, then this would undermine the results because the subjects didn't think of themselves as attractive and therefore wouldn't use their attractiveness as an asset. So they would be less willing to trust. Choice B is wrong. Although attractiveness is influenced by social and cultural norms, it doesn't really contradict the results. Option C is also incorrect because the people in the unattractive group who thought they were attractive could be in the group within the unattractive group that was willing to trust when they knew that their pictures were being seen. So they could be in that 30% who were willing to trust. And option D is incorrect because, as mentioned in the last sentence, there is a positive correlation between the self ratings and the panel ratings. Also, the panel ratings were said to be more important than the self ratings. Does that make sense? The big thing about this question is understanding that the subjects who thought themselves as attractive were willing to trust. So if the panel saw them as attractive, but the subjects didn't, then that would kind of undermine the results. All right, should we move on to question 4? Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'll be right back. So option C is just saying that the subjects who the panel thought were attractive. Sorry. Yeah, option C is saying that the subjects who were rated unattractive, but they thought that they were very attractive themselves, they could still belong in this 30% that we're willing to trust. So it doesn't really undermine the results. It kind of gives us a reason that this 30% were like of the unattractive people we're willing to trust. All right, so what did you guys get for question 4? Yeah, so you guys are right. Option D is the correct answer. The aim of the experiment is to determine whether attractive people who thought they were seen as attractive. Sorry, let me start over. The purpose of the experiment is to determine whether attractive people who thought they could be seen would be more trusting of other people. So they found that more attractive people who were more trusting, therefore we could conclude that unattractive people were less trusting. So choice A is wrong because the experiment tested trust, not honesty. Choices B and C are wrong because they're out of scope. We can't really jump to any of these conclusions based on the data. All right, and what did you guys get for question 5? Yeah, so the correct answer is A. The foot in the door technique is used to get someone to perform a large task that they otherwise would not perform by asking for a smaller request first. So the subjects granting permission is the small task. If they complete this, then they are more likely to let their partner divide the money, which is an example of the foot in the door technique. So option B is wrong. Self-serving bias is defined as a tendency to attribute success to internal factors like I got an A on my test because I'm so smart. and not because I studied for 100 hours. And they would attribute failure to external factors like I got a D on my test because my teacher hates me and the room was too cold, and not because I didn't study at all. So choice C is wrong. Groupthink is defined as the tendency for people in a group to make a decision, even if it's the wrong decision, just because they want to make a decision. So choice D is wrong. The bystander effect is defined as the decreased tendency of people in a crowd to help someone who needs help because they feel less responsibility. Does that make sense? Self-serving bias is a little bit different than confirmation bias because confirmation bias is your tendency to look at new evidence as confirming like your previous beliefs. So you're not really interpreting the evidence as neutral, you're interpreting it as like you're finding bits and pieces of the evidence that already suit your previous understanding of it. Self-serving bias is different because it's about yourself, like how, like the reasons of your actions and behavior. All right, last question. What did you guys get? Yeah, so choice A is correct. External validity refers to the extent to which a study's results can be applied or generalized to other people in the real world. For example, if only males are included in a study, then it has a low external validity because it can't be applied to the general public since females were excluded. Item 1 is wrong because removing data from the experiment won't make the results less or more valid. So B and D can be crossed out. We know that item 3 must be true, so we can look at item 2. Averaging the self-ratings won't impact the validity of the study. Again, we want something that allows the results to be generalized. So item 3 is correct. If we include more people in the study and randomly select participants, then the data would be more representative and the validity will be increased. Does that make sense? All right. Item 2 would not increase the validity because you're just averaging the self ratings with the panel ratings. And in the end of the passage, they even said that they weren't considering the self ratings, that the results only fit with the panel ratings. So in order to increase the validity, you want something that will allow the results to be generalized. So repeating the experiment with more and more people that are randomly selected, that would increase the validity because it can be generalized. Averaging the self ratings doesn't really have the same effect. It probably, oh, sorry, I read external validity. Internal validity would, it probably would increase the internal validity. I'm not entirely too sure about that. Yeah. Does anyone have any other questions before I pass it over to Sim? Okay.
Okay, can you guys see the screen? I think we're gonna go over the cars passage first. How did you guys find this passage? Easy? Okay, yeah, that's good. Okay, so I'll just go over the passage quickly and then go over the answers. So paragraph 1 was just discussing how history in schools is kind of boring. Paragraph 2 talks about why the other type of history is not boring and how it's different from the stuff we learn in school. Paragraph 3 provides more examples of why that history is important. And paragraph 4 talks about how history makes up you. Paragraph 5 talks about the past and the present, and paragraph 6 talks about how time is related to the present and the past, and the conclusion is talking about why we need history. Okay, so what did you guys get for question 1? So based on the first paragraph, what would the author agree with? Anyone else? Feel free to put your answers in the chat. Okay, yeah, so D is correct. It's mostly addressing the first paragraph is talking about why a lot of that history is not fun, and that's because we learn it in school and they emphasize the dates and all those other stuff, and that's why we're not drawn to it. Okay, question 2. Does anyone want to explain this before I go over it? Yeah, this was the theme of the passage. So we mostly talked about how the past can still influence the present. So the best answer would be C. That explaining your childhood is informing your adulthood. That's kind of showing how the past influences the present. Question 3. Yeah, so we talked about this in the passage where the current state of history is influenced by the past. So the nation's current state is going to be influenced by something that happened in the past. So the best answer is going to be how the nation's developed over time, and that kind of explains the history. Okay, number 4. Let me know if there's any questions or you guys picked something else that you want me to explain. So why did we use the word choked in paragraph 6? Yeah, does anyone want to explain this answer? Yeah, so this is an inference question, and yeah, in the previous sentence, where is it? Yeah, so that we're giving too much time to news, so the author's thinking that we're probably we are consuming too much history or news and not enough of the history actual part of it. So that's why BA is the best answer. So given the author's claims, what would he encourage today's history students to adopt? Okay, so for this question, we have to think about what the author claims makes history interesting and exciting. He says mostly that history is a record of lasting contributions made to man's knowledge, wisdom, art. So he's thinking that history influences a lot of things. And it's in economics, religion, literature, science, and government. It has a lot of other things. So that's what he's explaining, that history is not boring. And because it can be applied to so many things. So that's what I see as the best answer, because he's thinking about other disciplines as well, such as economics, religion, literature, science. So that would be the best claim that the author would tell other students. He's saying that kind of history is not boring, and that would make it exciting. The other one, study history like one studies current affairs. I don't think you can really say that. That's not what he's applying. I think if you were to choose this, you're saying, I think you're bringing a lot of outside knowledge into this passage by saying that people study current affairs like that. The author does say that we watch a lot of news, but it can't be super applied that we're studying it like that. He didn't also mention interviewing people in historical events, so we can cross that out. And C looks okay. Looking at D, he didn't really say he didn't mention studying with others and stuff like that either. So C would be the best answer. Does that make sense? Okay, and someone direct messaged me for the psych passage. If you want to shoot that question over to Ashley, that would be the best. Okay, so the author suggests if a teacher were to agree with Henry Ford's assessment of history, what would that teacher's view be? So would it be dismissed? Would it be justified? Would it be proven true or taken seriously by the historians? So there's no reason that it would just be dismissed by the students. Right, so Henry Ford said history is boring. But, and the author agrees with that. So the author is saying he agrees with Henry Ford's assessment that history is boring, but that's because he's saying they learned it in school, where they do teach it with dates and stuff like that. But he's saying the other history that we don't really teach in the school is the contributions of knowledge, art, skills, government, literature, and he's saying that kind of history is not boring. So he's agreeing with Henry Ford, but does that kind of make sense? The author is saying he's agreeing with it, but he also mentions that there's a different type of history that's not boring. It's not going to be proven true. That's not really offered, mentioned in the passage that we can prove this. And we didn't really talk about what historians really think about what Henry Ford thinks at all. So B would be the best answer. Any questions here?
I felt B is kind of, because when author is saying that history is actually not boring, history has a lot of stuff. I feel if a history student, who someone probably have interest in history, would probably disagree with Henry Ford. I have problem like a lot on the reasoning on this one.
Right. So this is a little confusing to understand because the author is saying he's agreeing that history is boring. And he said, I should largely agree with the great engineer. He's saying he's a historian. He's written history. He studied it for 45 years. And I agree with the great engineer, who is Henry Ford, you know? So he's agreeing with Henry Ford. He's saying history in schools is, you know, flat and stale. No wonder few students are drawn to it, and we can't learn from it. But history from to the civilization, history of the lasting contributions, the other type of history that we don't learn in school, that history is not boring. So there's like two types of histories, but the author says he agrees with Henry Ford.
So, so the author would be based on the first paragraph, be presumably assumed as a history student. And when answering this question, we only look at the first paragraph.
Not really. You don't only look at the first paragraph. It's kind of saying, well, the Henry Ford example is in the first paragraph, so you definitely want to look here. But you also want to look that the author does say that there's two types of histories. So the first few, yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay, great. So we're going to give you guys two more passages and then we'll go over those. Ashley, do you want to send your passage in there?
Yeah, I'm sending it now.
Let us know when you're ready to start, and then we'll give you guys 20 minutes to do these passages. Let us know in the chat once you're done.
All right, how did you guys find the passage? The biology one, was it easy, hard, medium? Easy through me. Okay, cool. All right, so we'll go over the answers now. Again, if you want to explain your answer, please type an asterisk next to your answer. I forgot to mention that last time and it was just me talking, so I'm sorry about that. So what did you guys get for question 1? Okay. Okay, so for question 1, the correct answer, why isn't it? Okay, the correct answer is choice C. In the passage, we're told that vitamin E is an antioxidant, meaning that it reduces the oxidation of fatty acids. In figure 1, we can see that vitamin E alone, this bar in white, increases blood flow, but fatty acids alone decreases blood flow here. So we can conclude that the products of fatty acid oxidation decreases blood flow. So in the last group of fatty acids plus vitamin E is trying to increase blood flow, but the products of fatty acid oxidation is trying to reduce blood flow. That's why we get like a weird in between here, where blood flow is not increased or decreased as much as fatty acids alone or vitamin E alone. So choice A is incorrect because vitamin E alone does not decrease blood flow, it increases it. Choice B is wrong because although vitamin E increases blood flow, it does not increase it more than fatty acids because fatty acids decrease blood flow. So this choice is assuming that fatty acids increase blood flow, which they don't. And choice D is wrong because unoxidized fatty acids aren't really mentioned in the passage. So it's a little bit out of scope. Does that make sense?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I thought the C and D have the same meaning. Is the unoxidized fatty acid is just like a unprocessed fatty acids from the vitamin E?
So unoxidized fatty acids would mean fatty acids that haven't gone through oxidation. So it's just assuming. So over here, we're looking at the products of fatty acid oxidation. So unoxidized fatty acids would be different than that.
So unoxidized fatty acid will basically mean the reactant before beta oxidation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm. So choice B is wrong because vitamin E, like this part is correct. Vitamin E alone increases blood flow, but the fact that it's saying more than fatty acids alone is assuming that fatty acids increase blood flow, but fatty acids actually decrease blood flow. So it's the wording that makes it incorrect. Because if fatty acids increase blood flow like up to here, then it would be true, but fatty acids actually decrease it. So. All right, and what did you guys get for question 2? Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, the correct answer is A. We're told that vasoconstriction is occurring due to something happening with the nervous system. 2 neurotransmitters important in the sympathetic nervous system are epinephrine and norepinephrine. So a change in the norepinephrine present in the blood can account for the decrease in blood flow to the skin. So choice B is wrong because acetylcholine isn't involved in the sympathetic nervous system, but rather the parasympathetic nervous system to produce voluntary muscle contractions. Choice C is wrong. Changes in the sympathetic nervous system will not affect the number of epinephrine receptors. Choice D is wrong because the blood vessels aren't being dilated, they're being constricted. Any questions? Okay. What did you guys get for question 3? Okay, Brian, why do you say D?
This is a content knowledge based question, and basically capillary has the lowest change in blood pressure since you just simply diffuse for the gas exchange.
Yeah, exactly. So you're correct. This question is a content-based question. We just need to remember that capillaries do not contain thick walls and they carry blood at very low pressure since their main role is diffusion of gases and molecules. So choice A is wrong because blood pressure will be the highest in the heart since it has to pump blood to the whole body. Choice B is also wrong because arteries contain very thick muscular walls, so they could pump blood long distances. And choice C is wrong because arterioles carry blood at higher pressure than capillaries, but lower than the arteries. Okay. And what did you guys get for question 4? C. Okay. Brian, why did you say C?
First of all, because this is being directly mentioned in the passage, saying that for the control, they will instruct not to alert their habit or lifestyle during the experiment, which being mentioned in the second end of the sentence in the second paragraph. And then second, if you change the other thing, you might possibly have the confounding variable in the experiment.
Exactly. Yeah. So everyone was correct. Answer choice C is the correct answer. So if we look back at the passage, like Brian said, the experimenters measured blood flow on day 0 and then on day 60 after eating the supplements. The experimenters controlled for, or at least they tried to control for their habits, diet, skin temperature, and time at which the measurements were taken. If any of these factors changed, it could alter the results. So the researchers are assuming that the subjects were obedient and didn't change their habits in any way. So choice A is wrong because we're trying to measure the effect of fatty acids on skin blood flow. Choice B is wrong because we're also trying to determine if vitamin E reduces skin blood flow. And choice D is wrong because the experimenters didn't measure blood pressure, just blood flow. So they can't assume that blood pressure differed if they never even accounted for it in the first place. All right, and last question, what did you guys get? Wait a minute. Oh. Wait a minute. All right, that's weird. Okay, so yeah, Crystal, you're correct. I'm sorry about that. I somehow skipped the fifth question, but the correct answer is D. Thank you, Brian. The correct answer is D. Skin blood flow is the dependent variable, and the experimenters tried to control for the 3 other variables. So that's why the correct answer is D. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. All right, I'll pass it over to Sim.
Okay, how did you guys find this passage? Easy. Okay, that's great. So question 1. Which mutation of the rhodopsin gene leads to which post-translational modifications? So what did you guys get for this? Yeah, Brian, do you want to explain this?
Ubiquitination is basically talking about how they use a biological marker to mark the protein and then this tag for destruction. And basically in the less close to the second last sentence, they basically mention about how the mutation will cause it to aggregate, disrupting the filament and then eventually destruction for non-functional protein, lead to apoptosis.
Yeah, exactly. So we talked about the mutation right here and it destroys the protein. So the only one that talks about destroying it is A, phosphorylation, methylation, and glycosylation does not do that. So A is the best answer. Okay, question 2. So the function of the enzyme is to do what? Yeah, exactly. So in here, it talks about what the enzyme is doing is converting these steps. And we can see that in this figure right here, that it goes from, it isomerizes from a trans to a cis position. So that's definitely, we need isomerize. And C is the only one that has that. It also undergoes an hydrolysis from compound B because we remove this ester linkage and that is not present in C. So it was looking from B to C. As you see, the enzyme is present here. So what is happening from B to C? So the trans goes to cis. So that's an isomerization and we get rid of that ester linkage. So C is the best answer. Can I circle? Yeah, let me try to annotate on here. Okay, can you guys see this? So here is trans, and then here it goes cis. Why would it not be B? Because we don't do a decarboxylation. It's more of the hydrolysis, which is a removal of that ester linkage. So even we don't really get rid of anything else. And we need a summarization. So C is the only one that has it. Let me switch back to the mouse. Okay, cool. What about number 3? Yeah, so we're talking about the holoenzyme, and that's when we have a protein with the cofactor. So we're talking about the 2 components, the protein with the covalently bound retinol. They don't mention this word in the passage, but you should know what it means. It means there's a protein with a cofactor. So that's what the sentence is saying. That rhodopsin, the protein, it has a protein molecule called scotopsin and a covalently bound retinol. So it has something attached to the protein, and that's what a holoenzyme is. And then it talks about that this is in the lipid bilayer and has protein transmembrane domains. So this is really hydrophobic because those have a lot of hydrogen and carbon aspects. So the best answer would be A then. Yeah, that's a good inference if you weren't sure what the word means. Okay, number 4. What residue in scotopsin becomes covalently bound to retinol? So now we're looking at amino acids. Yeah, so we want to look for, here it says it's linked to a residue side chain. So we want to look at the side chain here, which has a nitrogen. So which amino acid has a nitrogen in the side chain? So this is something you guys should know on top of your head. Definitely know the amino acids like down. You definitely need that for the MCAS. So lysine is the one with the nitrogen side chain. You can, it kind of looks like this. So you need to remember that. The other ones don't have the nitrogen side chain. Is cofactor always covalently bound? I think they're bound pretty tightly, so I think that would be a covalent bond. I'm not sure if it's always a covalent bond though, but I'm pretty sure most likely it's going to be a covalent bond. And is holoenzyme a cofactor or coenzyme? It is a cofactor. Okay. Which molecule from figure 2 indicates this change? From going cis-retinol to trans-retinol. Anyone else? Did you guys have trouble with this question? Okay, so one thing you have to be careful here is that it is retinol with the AL. So that AL means it is an aldehyde. So the one that is aldehyde, this is an alcohol, so it's not C. So the one that we start with the aldehyde is going to be D. And that's where we also convert from the cis to the trans retinol. So that's why the best answer is B. So remember, we go from cis, we did that transformation from here, trans to cis, and then we'll do it again here from D to around here, then we go back to the trans retinol. I can draw it in again. So here we have the aldehyde and the cis, sorry, hold up, okay. And then in G, we're back to the trans retinol. Does that make sense? This is an alcohol, so it's not retinol, it's retinol. So you want to be careful. Sorry, I should have typed this, but it's the OL. Make sense? Does anyone else have any questions? Oh, do you mean trans? Okay. Yeah, because it's not on the same side. Does that make sense? Let me draw that out. So it's kind of like this, where it's on opposite sides, that's trans, whereas this is on the same side, like this. Does that make sense? Okay.
I think you meant to draw a double bond in between because a single bond can rotate freely.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Hold up. Where is the, let me clear this, sorry. Okay. Yeah, it should just be like this. Does anyone else have any other questions? Well, thank you guys so much for coming to today's session. If you have any questions, just email us at the team email, and yeah, thank you guys.
For the question, the how do you study for psychology, sociology? The way that I studied was I would make flashcards, lots and lots of flashcards, but the thing about psych and soc, it's not just knowing your terms, it's also like being able to understand like experiments, the experimenter's goals, the variables, how they impact like validity, implications, and all of that. The 300-page Khan Academy document also helps a lot if you want like a more, I wouldn't say condensed version, but like if you want something where everything is there in one place. With the experimental passages, I can give you some resources for that if you just email us. I can definitely send you some like workbooks, websites, etc. It just takes a lot of practice. Passage. Yeah. All right. I'll keep that in mind for next week. Yeah, for sure. In the earlier stages of like these practice sessions, I would like show everyone my highlights and like why I highlighted them and why they're important. But I didn't know if you guys like found them helpful or not, so that's why I just like stopped doing it. But I can do that for next week.
Okay, thank you guys. If you have any other suggestions, please fill out that survey. We do look at those and it's super helpful. That's kind of how we run our sessions based on feedback from you guys. So if you have any feedback, please fill those out and we'll take those into consideration. Okay, we'll see you guys next week.